I want to share with you guys a few things about working with masks. So if you're brand new to masks, or if you've just been working with them a bit, I want to show you some shortcutting and some great things we can do. So we've got a file open here in Photoshop CS4, and we can do the same things in CS5, you guys. You're going to see we have the masks panel over here on the right, and this is something that was new or introduced in CS4, and it's just another way to create masks. To create a mask, we typically go out and make some kind of selection. Okay, so that's what I'm going to start with. Now, a lot of times there's like 5,000 ways to make selections in here, right? Believe it or not, I love the quick selection tool over here. This thing is actually pretty cool. Now, it typically shows you a brush size, and we can change the brush size by using shortcuts. On Windows, if I hold down the Alt key and right-click drag right or left, I can change the brush size. On Windows also, if I hold down Alt-Shift, right-click drag right, drag left, you can actually change the hardness or the edge of the brush. That's kind of cool, huh? Now, on Mac, I always forget a lot of these shortcuts, so I have a website here that I went to that shows these. You can see the Windows shortcuts right here, and you can see the Mac shortcuts right here. So it's Control, Alt, Option, drag to resize the brush, or Control, Alt, Option, Command, and drag to change the hardness of the brush. A little wacky, anyway. All right, let me get back over here. Now, I'm going to go in and just start selecting here. The way this thing works is it just starts sampling colors from the center there. So I'll just kind of randomly go out. And typically, you guys, you don't want to keep running. You want to kind of take it easy, because otherwise you're going to see stuff like that happen. Now, to delete stuff, or excuse me, to deselect things from this selection, I can hold down the Alt on Windows, Option on Mac, and you'll see the minus sign show up in the middle of the brush there. I can just kind of click and drag to kind of deselect things. The finer, the more control you want, you're probably going to want to go in and change the brush size itself. So we want to kind of be careful here. So I'll keep going, keep adding, kind of go across the hand. I added this, so I'll subtract it. Alt or Option. I've got it in the center here. I need to get rid of that too. So what I'll do is I'll zoom in a bit here. I'm using Control plus on Windows, Command plus on Mac. I'll change my brush size. Go in and subtract this using Alt or Option. There we go. Now, the thing about working with a mask is you can, like I said, create them, use them a bunch of different ways. Photoshop CS4 and CS5. Over here in the Masks panel, I can click and create two different kinds of masks. I can create a pixel mask or a vector mask. Now, what's the difference? Pixel mask is based on pixels. Vector mask is actually a shape, basically, that's drawn. Okay, we typically tend to use what are called pixel masks. Not always, but in a lot of situations. Another way to create a mask is to come down here in the Layers panel. This is kind of old school, and click on the Add Mask button right there. All right, now I'm going to add a mask just by doing it right up here. I'll click on Add Pixel Mask right there. There we go. There's our mask. And what's crazy is in CS4, CS5, we've got all these choices here in the Masks panel. We've got the density. We can change how dense we want it to be, which is kind of cool. You can make that background area transparent or translucent. You can feather the edge. You can see what that does right there. And we can refine it. A lot of things we can do here. Okay, now what I want to do is show you guys some of the old school techniques that we use for masks. One great thing about masks, and the reason why we use them, is because they don't delete anything in the background, right? So if you guys look down here in the Layers panel, you'll see I've got the layer itself, the contents, and then I've got the mask to the right. I also see a little link in between. That's really important. If we come out here and we take this, let's say I click on the thumbnail, you guys always have to select what you want to edit or what you want to work with. So if I click on the thumbnail there, I'm going to edit the artwork. If I want to move something, let's say I want to move the artwork, I come to the Move tool over here, and I click and drag. You'll notice what happens here. The mask, as I move, look down here in Layers panel, moves with it. That's because they're linked together. You'll see the link right there. Now let me undo. If I were to deselect the link right there, come out here and move the artwork, you'll notice what starts to happen. Now this can lead to some pretty cool different things here. If you've got a picture that's big enough, maybe that's got some area in the background out there that you can kind of show. This is how people also create some pretty cool effects. Let me undo. I can also move the mask itself, same difference there, but let me click on the link or the area between to link them back. Now, if you want to edit the mask, you totally can. Okay, there's a couple ways to do this. I'll show you the new method in CS4 rather, in CS5, and I'll show you some old school methods. So if I come here to my mask and I click on it, you guys will notice that Pixel Mask shows up in the Masks panel, and it says, okay, we can refine the mask edge, color range, or even invert. If you click on invert, you're going to see that it does just what it says. It inverses the mask. Now, you guys, another way to do that is actually to use Control-I or Command-I. That's the old school method, okay? you're going to see Mask Edge here. If I click on Mask Edge, this is actually one of the newer features. It's been in here a couple versions, but it's pretty cool in some cases. Okay, it allows you to do things like change the radius, contrast, smoothing, feathering, and expand or contract the actual path. Now in CS4, you guys are going to see this dialog box looks like you see here. I'm in Photoshop CS4. In CS5, this thing's been greatly enhanced. In CS4, it was kind of tough to tell what each one did. It tried to give you a description, and I don't know. I thought it was a little Mickey Mouse in some ways, but we could go in here and just start moving stuff and see what happens. But a lot of times it doesn't do very good. I can also contract and expand. You guys can see right there. So you guys can go in here, try to explore in here a little bit. Got to be careful with some of these. Like feathering will actually feather quite a bit. A lot of times you want to be really careful with that one. And smoothing can go a long way to kind of get rid of some of the rough edges, but you got to be careful with how much you do that, because you'll start to see that it starts to round things off. So you don't have your crisp edges here. So a little bit goes a long way with a lot of these. All right, let me click OK. We can always get back there and edit it. Now the other things here I want to show you are some nice shortcuts we can use with the Layers panel. If you guys have the mask down here, you'll see that we can actually turn it on and off by shift-clicking the mask. You'll also see there's an eye icon here in the mask panel. If I click there, it does the same exact thing, you guys. I sometimes don't like using the masks panel because I grew up using, the shortcuts down here. So it's up to you guys. If you guys decide that you want to get the selection that you made, you want to get that back, and you want to do something with it, you can always come to the mask itself and Control or Command click on it, and you get the selection back. You'll notice that if I hold the Control key down, I'll actually see, this is on Windows, I'll see a little dotted box next to the hand there. Now, same thing over here, you guys. Let me deselect that. You can load the selection from the mask by clicking this button as well. It's all the same difference, whatever you want to do. There are a couple other cool things we can do here, though. If I come to the mask and I Alt or Option click on it, you can actually see the mask out there, which is kind of cool. I like this because sometimes when you're working with a mask, you can have an area out here that should be masked when it's not. So it's kind of hard to tell. And you guys, obviously, if you take a look, the way a mask works is the black area is, I guess you could say, hidden, and the white area is showing. Now, to show the mask again, I can Alt or Option click on the mask, and there we go. The great thing about working with masks, you guys, is you're not done. You can always edit the mask. As a matter of fact, if I come out here and let's say I want to edit this area out here or the edge of the hand or something like that, I can zoom into an area. Let me zoom in a bit. Let's say I want to get rid of this rough little edge right here. I can come to the mask, select it in the Layers panel, use my brush tool. If I go to the brushes over here, you'll see I've got my brush right here. Come on out here. I can resize it, showing you guys the shortcuts I used. If you want, you can paint with black, white, or shades of gray. Now, shades of gray are going to be kind of translucent or transparent. Black and white are going to be straight up. Black is hidden, white is showing. If you guys actually press the D key, your colors down here, you'll show up. Your foreground, background colors will actually go to default. As you paint, you want to paint with white or black. Now, I screw this up all the time. It's always the foreground color, the one up here in the upper left. If I start painting and I realize, oh, wrong color, you'll see white actually shows, black hides. I can undo. If you press the X key, that'll swap the colors there, get the color you want, and you can start painting again. So I could go in here and just start editing the mask however I want to. That's kind of cool. Now, another thing we could do, which is pretty neat, if you have a mask that, let's say it's got kind of a jagged edge on it. It's not following exactly the way you want to. Maybe it's a pixelated image or something like that, and you want to smooth out the mask. Well, we saw we can use the mask edge here to refine it. We can also apply different things like filters to masks. So if I come up to Filter, and I have, you guys, this is the key here. I have the mask selected, not the picture. If I come, I can sharpen, blur, do all sorts of things to the mask. If I come to blur, and let's say I just try a really simple, like a Gaussian blur, you guys will see that if I increase the radius here, you'll see how much I can blur it. Kind of like a feather in some ways. Not exactly, but so then I can blur, kind of get rid of, soften some of the edges if I want to, etc. Anyway, a lot of great things we can do with masks. A couple other things, just a quick heads up here. Let me do this. I'm going to put a black background here so we can see this thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a quick layer here and throw a black color in there. If you guys notice, you're going to see that in here especially, I've got these white edges right here. Now what I could do is come to the mask and select it, and then come out here and start trying to brush those away. You can see right there. But you got to be careful, because a lot of times you get into a brush into a corner like this, and it's going to start to round it off, and you don't want to do that. So a couple other things we can do. For the mask itself, we're not affecting the image. You guys can come over to a couple tools called Dodge and Burn. If I go to the Burn tool, let's say, I can come out here and start to kind of burn a little bit of this mask up. And what that tries to do is it tries to make it a little bit lighter, a little bit darker. That way I can kind of try to affect the edge there. Doesn't seem to want to be doing that much for that one right there. But let me zoom out a little bit. You guys can kind of see I'll make my brush a little bit bigger. And I kind of start to burn these edges here. I'll start to change it a little bit. Now, if it's not affecting it, you'll notice it's not affecting that. It's probably because it's on the image itself. So what I can do is go to the image part of the layer there and start to just burn that a bit, just so we kind of get it going there. There we go. Not too bad. A little bit better. And you got to be careful with this too, because it'll distort your image. You don't want to be crazy with that, but it can kind of help your mask a little bit. So we can try the mask itself. You can try the image and see which one works. Anyway, wanted to give you a heads up on masks, working with them, just adding a few little shortcuts along the way.